It's October again, and unfortunately, there's no Scooby-Doo. Stuff I'm going to talk about. Because we talked about it in great detail last year. But, I have decided that this year is going to probably be my favorite, movies, horror movies, well, somewhat horror movies. So, yeah. And most of them are old. And I mean really, really old. So, tonight, it's not going to be a whole month like last year because I have not many movies I like that are basically horror movies. And there might be some video games thrown in there and that. So, let's talk about the first movie I ever watched, horror movie I ever watched, which was, well, it's more of a comedy horror movie, and that is, of course, Gremlins. Now, Gremlins was my childhood, and it still is one of my favorite movies. Why? It's corny, it's stupid, and there's nothing to be afraid of it. It's comedy. So this kid gets this little thing called Gizmo, and a mogwai, and the story is this: someone gets it from a pawn shop. Okay, now this thing is nice. And the guy just tells him, don't get it wet, don't feed it after midnight, and do not let it go into direct sunlight. 3 basic rules. And what does the kid do? The one that gets this mogwai name, well, the first thing he does is get him wet. And what happens when he gets him wet is he starts multiplying. He starts popping out these little bitty mogwais. And they're not nice at all. They're evil. So that's lesson number 1. Don't get them wet, whatever you do. Now, believe it or not, there is a Powerpuff Girls episode. I'll talk about that maybe during this month because, it's more or less just a kind of spoof of the movie Gremlins. So, the second thing rule he breaks is don't feed them after midnight. Now, this isn't like, oh, I can feed them whatever I want after midnight. No, you cannot feed them after midnight. What happens is it's not his fault because obviously these little mogwais are hungry and they go out and eat things. And then the worst thing that could ever happen, they turn into gremlins. Now, contrary to opinion, some people say this movie is scary, but again, I wouldn't say it's scary. But for a little kid, maybe 5, 6 years old, maybe it is. But Gremlins, to me, even when I was 7, I loved Gremlins. So, anyway, these little mogwais get in this little pod, and they turn into Gremlins. Now, you're probably wondering, what about Gizmo? Can he become a gremlin? That's not really explained in the movie, but I'm guessing if that could have happened, that if he did feed Gizmo, after midnight, I'm guaranteeing you, he probably would have become a gremlin himself. Anyway, so they chase after these gremlins, and I'll have to talk about the second movie because the second movie has the best part in it. But anyway, there's a scene where these got people watching, I think it was Gremlins at the time. No, you're watching Gremlins, and if you're watching the theaters, you would see the most hilarious scene of all time. Now, this was cut out during its VHS release. I think they did bring it back to the DVD release, but you had to look into the extras. So, basically, the Gremlins mess with the projector, and it basically and Hulk Hogan is in the movie. He's sitting there, and all the others are watching the movie, and all of a sudden it stops. He's like, "Hey, we came in to watch the movie and eat popcorn and drink pop." It's funny. He's like, "If you don't get this movie back on, I'm gonna." We go home. He turns to the audience and says, "Sorry, folks, that won't ever happen again." Anyway, there's another scene where this gal just mutilates every single gremlin. She stabs one with a knife. She nukes one in the microwave. She blends one. I mean, it's a massacre. It's so freaking funny. And that stuck in my mind for so many years. Again, I don't like horror movies that much. I like the black and white movies. But, to be honest, Gremlins is a kid-friendly horror movie. I would not probably suggest you let maybe a 5 or 6 year old. I mean, if you want, just tell them, hey, this is a movie about a cute little guy. But if your kid's kind of sensitive to horror movies, maybe don't show them Gremlins. It's not it's kind of kid friendly. But some scenes can kind of scare them. Like, there's a scene where this electric gremlin goes in and messes with things. It's pretty damn scary at that point. But it's a comedy. So how did they beat him? What was the last rule the guy gave the people that bought this mogwai? Don't put them out in direct sunlight. So what do? They keep them out till daylight. I think at some point someone's like, I'm going to kind of blast this guy with sunlight. And the guy just lets them keep Gizmo. So, is it a good movie? Is it a good Halloween movie? Yeah. I would suggest probably maybe watching it every single year. It is and before you say, well, it's kind of a Christmas movie. Like I said last year, during my Christmas marathon, it is kind of a Christmas movie, but it's kind of not. Because it does start on Christmas Day. However, it does not end on Christmas Day. But it's definitely a good movie. I would definitely suggest going out and buying it. If you are you will be in for a treat. It's funny, it's hilarious, and I I'd say Gremlins and Gremlins 2, which is probably the better of the two, is more or less funnier. I mean, Gremlins, it's more or less just funny. It's not terrible. It's, again, I would not suggest letting a little 5 or 6-year-old who is terrified of monsters. But again, you got this little cute Mogwai in the movie. And Gremlins, they're kind of scary, but they're funny. Anyway, that is the beginning of my Oktoberfest. Again, it's not going to be for 31 days like last year. But I'll be doing more of these videos, talking about my favorite ones. Which next one is going to be is The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Not a great movie. I don't remember Gremlins 2 much, but I'll talk about what I do remember. And you never know, you might want to see that one too. I'll see you guys next time. Like, comment, subscribe, share. I'll see you guys on the next video. Happy Halloween, everybody.